One in five suffer.
Erase the stigma.
Brain difference is not a crime.
Mental health isn't just your problem.
It's our problem.
And now, Mental Health Monday with Marla and Dave.
Welcome to Mental Health Mondays. Oh, we don't hear Marla. Well, while she's getting her sound up, I'll let you know that today's show and every show is brought to you by NAMI San Fernando Valley and Loving Beyond Reason. Marla, are you with us?
Can you hear me?
I hear you.
Well, I want to say welcome again to back Dave up on Mental Health Monday. And I am apologetic for two things: that I am not in studio. I love to be live with our guests, and that I do not have my professional makeup artist. So this is as good as it's going to get. But I will say that I like to do a mental health check-in, and my mental health today, on a scale of 1 to 10, my mental wellness is about an 8.
That's pretty good, Marla. I give you that's better than it's been. Given the things that we've been dealing with. Both Marla and I were out of town last week. I was in Alabama. She's in Florida dealing with our fathers who are aging. But let me bring you up to speed with our guest. Our guest today is a NAMI San Fernando Valley board member. She's an LAPD mental health speaker. She is also a support group facilitator. She was one of the instructors of the immersive and highly educational class, Family to Family, that Marla and I took when we first encountered NAMI. And like many of the experts and professionals who run NAMI San Fernando Valley, Robin Steiner has a story of her own, dealing with loved ones who suffer with mental illness, or as we like to call it, brain difference. And as usual, I want to remind everybody watching that one of the main reasons we love to talk to leaders at NAMI San Fernando Valley is the fact that these conversations with the NAMI experts help to show the unity in the mental health community and helps to ease the anxiety of those who visit the NAMI San Fernando Valley website maybe for the first time. And when we come back, we'll have a great discussion with Robin Steiner.
Help someone who is struggling by supporting the National Alliance on Mental Illness and be a part of the NAMI effect. Hope starts with you.
Hey guys, listen up. Learn something.
All right. Robin, welcome to the show. Welcome to Mental Health Mondays.
Welcome to Mental Health Mondays, Robin.
Got you both.
Okay, yeah, so it's kind of disorienting sometimes. Marla's up on the big screen. We love to see her pretty face. I wish she was in studio with us, but we're glad that you are in studio with us, Robin. As I was saying in the intro, your son has a brain difference. Why don't you tell us when you first started noticing something was a little different and sort of bring us through that initial experience?
Around middle school time, he started exhibiting some behavior that we weren't aware that it was a mental difference, but it was.
Yeah.
And it escalated from there until he had about 13 hospitalizations before the time he was 21.
Wow. So when did the hospitalizations start? Because then when you get to hospitalization, that means it's really escalated to a very serious incident.
Just before his 16th birthday.
Oh, okay.
He was taken in on his first 5150.
Hmm.
And then between that and almost 22, when he had his major psychotic break, there were about 13 more.
Okay. Now, it's up to you. Usually, especially in dealing with our own children, we don't focus on the diagnosis only because that makes it difficult. It sort of feels like to the person that's dealing with the brain difference, as we're labeling them, and that kind of reemphasizes the stigma. So we only use the diagnosis really for making sure that the medication and that level of therapy is on par. But after that, really, they're just our kids.
Right.
I don't know about you. Is it the same for you?
Yeah. My son has a disease, just like diabetes, cancer. He has a disease.
Yeah.
That isn't who he is.
Right.
He's
exactly.
my son.
Exactly.
You know,
Exactly. So you first started noticing behavior that, And because I know for us, and Marla can chime in on this as well, when we first started noticing little things that were kind of out of the ordinary, it was also around the time when they're going through adolescence, and so we're not sure if this is just acting out or is it something else. Was it the same for you?
We knew it was a little more than acting out after the first few hospitalizations. We knew.
Oh, yeah,
that
by
there
the
was,
time you get to a hospitalization.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about prior to the hospitalization.
No, prior to that, we just thought, kids, boys growing up, they'll do what they do, and it's
Boys will be boys, kids will be kids.
Growing pains, but this was more than growing pains.
Yeah, Marla, you're about to say?
Yeah, no, what I wanted to say, because this is very good for a lot of parents, because I do know that what I'm asked most often is early stages. What age did you notice that there were differences? And then what did those differences look like? It's always a question. So I want to ask you the same question for your son and your experience. What was the first age that you thought, something's not right here?
Prior to the hospitalization, I assumed you were talking about, Marla.
Yeah, I would say probably around middle school, 13, there were things that he was gravitating towards an element that I didn't understand. You mean
socially speaking?
Socially,
yeah.
Socially. And he was just acting out, in a way that wasn't typical of what I thought middle school boy should be, the way he should be behaving.
And so now I know for us, we started our kids going to therapy pretty young, but we always were getting different diagnoses until we pretty much settled on one that we felt kind of hit the nail on the head, especially with our daughter. She went through so many different levels of diagnoses that for a while I was getting discouraged because I don't know if you saw the show last week, but it was my mother-in-law, Marla's mom, who was a mental health professional at the time, that was telling us, something serious is going on. And I too thought it was literally just, kids being kids and they'll grow out of it.
Growing pains, right? Like the typical, right? Kids have social adjustments to make. There's rebellion that happens, acting out happens, and so it takes a minute for any parent to get to the fact that you realize that this is something that's consistently different than that.
And so you're saying right around middle school, 13 years old, you started noticing some social issues that you weren't pleased with. And so at that point, when did you first start thinking something might be mentally wrong?
A little past that, once he got into high school, his first year of high school.
And had you already started therapy, or?
We started taking him, his doctor referred him to a psychologist and a psychiatrist, but he wasn't interested in that. And then they gave him a diagnosis, which has stuck. That diagnosis has stuck.
Okay.
But and then they
do you want to share the diagnosis?
He has bipolar disorder, BiPolar I, with when he goes into mania, psychotic tendencies, but he hasn't been manic in a very long time, in years. But he's compliant on his medication now. But they started, all different medications. And my son, being who he is, he was never compliant on oral medications. So nothing ever helped. And it just kept getting worse and worse.
And that's because he wasn't consistent with the medication?
No, he was not.
Okay. All right. So, so you got that diagnosis at the first hospitalization? Okay. Well, that's pretty good.
Yeah.
That's pretty good. And
but the trauma, I guess for me, Robin, as well, which I think that a lot of people would like to hear and know, is when you get the diagnosis, I don't think were you aware of what that actually meant?
No, I was not.
No,
exactly.
And we're going to come back to that. Hold that thought, because we have to take care of some housekeeping. We'll be right back after this message.
When Dave and Marla get together, it's hot.
Wacko, nutcase, loony. These words surrounding mental health are not only hurtful, but they're untrue. In a country where 1 in 5 are affected by mental illness, we need to start learning that not all pain and illnesses can be seen. I'm Tori DeVito, and I know. I know because I suffer from anxiety myself. I know what it feels like to be stuck in a black hole, to feel paralyzed inside your home, like you can't move, like you can't breathe, because your heart is pounding so hard you can't think of anything else. It's terrifying, and worst of all, it's alienating. So stand with me to see the person and not the illness. Let's all pledge to be stigma-free.
It's time for the Mental Health Minute with Marla and Dave.
Some have asked, what causes mental illness? As far as we know, there is no single cause for mental illness. Here are a number of factors that can contribute to risk for mental illness.
Early adverse life experience such as trauma or the history of abuse. For example, child abuse, sexual assault, witnessing violence, etc. Experiences related to other ongoing chronic medical conditions such as cancer or diabetes, biological factors such as genes or chemical imbalances in the brain, use of alcohol or recreational drugs, having few friends, or having feelings of loneliness or isolation.
Here are 5 warning signs of mental illness. 1, long-lasting sadness or irritability. The second is extremely high and low moods or mood swings, excessive fear, worry, or anxiety. Number 4, social withdrawal. And the 5th is dramatic changes in eating or sleeping habits.
If you, again, or anyone that you know is suffering from any of these symptoms, please, we ask you to check with to seek professional mental help. This message is brought to you by NAMI San Fernando Valley and Loving Beyond Reason.
David is a thinker.
I never do anything without thinking about it first.
Marla is a feeler.
I basically wear my personality on my sleeve.
But when Marla and Dave get together, it's like a match dancing with a firecracker.
All right, Marla, I think you were asking Robin a question as we were going to that break.
I was asking her about her son. And you know, Robin, one of the things that we bring up, and I think this is a very interesting conversation that you can contribute to personally, is the willingness to accept. We have different cultural communities. And I do know that it seems statistically that even in our community as African Americans and minorities, there tends to be a complete dismissal when it comes to mental health issues. So when you understood that your son had an issue, was it difficult to accept? Was it easy? Tell us your journey into actually being able to seek diagnosis and help for your son. Was
difficult to accept. I did not want to accept it. As a parent, you want to hope that your child will grow out of that behavior. Mm-hmm. But he wasn't growing out of it, and I had to get an education. I really had to get an education, and had I not done that, I don't know really what would have happened to him. I really don't know.
Were you familiar at that? Was your first stop in getting help NAMI?
No.
Or was it just a private psychiatrist or psychologist?
No, it was a private psychiatrist and psychologist. And the psychologist, he was a psychiatrist that I had, told me that there was no hope for my son.
Wow.
And that I should just...
That came from the doctor?
The doctor.
No hope?
He said, your son is going to go to jail. That's what he told me. Your son is going to go to jail.
Wow.
Take care of yourself. That's what the doctor told me. And as a mother, I was not going to buy that.
So needless to say, did you keep that particular doctor?
No.
I was about to say.
No.
So how many, and this is important because for those of you who are watching, and again, I'm open and I get barraged all the time with questions. And when I say barrage, just the number of people are seeking information. How many times for you did you have to search and find and change care providers to make your son comfortable or to really be able to effectively treat him?
And I'll add to that, not just your son's comfort level with the therapist, because for us, as I was a lot of times the one taking my son to his therapy sessions, I had to be comfortable too. So it's not just your son, but your comfortability as well. How was that, working that out?
I don't even know how many doctors we ended up seeing. At the time, we had an HMO, so we had to stay within our HMO.
Right.
But
if you wanted the full discount.
Well, basically,
yeah.
That's your care
or
provider.
pay cash.
Yeah, it was the provider.
Yeah, that was the box.
Yeah, it was. So, as a parent, and as I tell my students in family to family, if you're not happy with your psychiatrist, if it doesn't ring true to what you're seeing and what you're feeling, you go above them. Always with respect, but you always go above, and you ask for a supervisor, or you ask for another psychiatrist, another psychologist, until you get somebody who will actually listen to you, because as we've all learned, we're the experts.
Exactly.
We're the experts where our children are concerned, or where your wife or husband or parent is concerned. We are the experts.
Absolutely.
We have lived experience. And I just kept pushing through. I mean, it took a crisis to get my son on the right medication and to get him to even accept that he had a brain difference, which he does accept now.
He fully accepts it now.
He fully accepts it now.
And you said earlier that it was tough for him to stay on oral medication, so I'm assuming now you do an injection?
Do an injection.
Okay,
yes.
once a month.
Once every 90 days.
Every 90 days. Wow.
It was a game changer, a lifesaver. It took him from not being able to function to being in his last year of college and thinking that he's going to move on to a master's degree. So
wow.
I would always say there is hope for somebody who struggles with a brain disorder. But, it's a long road.
Yeah, that titration process could be quite some time.
Yeah.
Now, how long, you said starting at around 16 when he had his first hospitalization, how old is he now?
He's 27 now.
And how long has he been on that 90-day injection?
He's been on that for about 3 years now. It
Wow.
started off once a month.
Wow.
And then once a month for 6 months, and now it's once every 90 days.
And that many years before they got there, that's still part of the titration process. I just want to let parents who may be listening, or those who may be listening dealing with this type of issue, that you have to have a real discipline to stick to the process, no matter how discouraging things may seem. As Robin said, she was told by a doctor who we think, that's the beginning and end all, that there was no hope, and she didn't give up.
No.
And I will say that you get you're so, it's so devastating, and you're so ready to have a solution that when you go to a physician, the first thing you think is, okay, like I'm going to get an understanding. I'm going to get my child some help. And when those of us who are really in it understand, wait a minute, this is not a one-stop shop that fixes all. And that's why I brought up the question I asked you, Robin, is because I really want to begin to paint the picture that mental health affects all of us. So the disparaging differences that we talk about, this is not a condition that, stops at, the suburbs, or because, when my bank balance looks like this, then I'm immune, or it's all of us. It's 1 in 5 people, all people
who have the brain difference. And then the rest of us who actually have to help and live with them, we have to deal with it as well. We're going to turn the corner and talk about your introduction to NAMI when we come back. All right, it's time for the poll question break. We always start with last week's poll. Marla, do you want to give them remind them of what last week's poll was?
Since Zoom failed us on the Mental Health Minute.
That's okay.
So last week's poll is simply this: many Americans don't have access to adequate mental health treatment. What percentage of American adults with mental illness did not receive care in the last year? 14%, 38%, or 56%? What would you say, Robin?
I would say 48%.
It's a whopping
30.
it's
56.
a whopping 56% of
So I
people
repeat-
who actually already know that they have a mental health issue and they did not receive care all of last year. That's a little spooky. The poll question for this week is, what percentage of adults in the U.S. live with bipolar disorder? Would that be 0.05 or a half of 1%, 2.6%, or 3.8%? You can actually find these poll questions anywhere our social media is, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, or even on our websites, both Loving Beyond Reason and NAMI San Fernando Valley. Take the poll, learn something. It's fun and educational. We'll be right back.
Vote.
All right. So as we were saying, Robin, first of all, time always flies when you're having fun, as they say. But when did you actually get introduced to NAMI?
My son had come to live with me. My ex-husband had kicked him out, and he was a really scary dude. I was really frightened of him. And I was desperate to find something, some help, some resource.
Now, when you say a scary dude, you're talking about your ex-husband?
No, my son.
Oh, okay.
My
At the
son.
time, he was really
Right.
going through it.
Yeah. He was in full-blown mania.
And was your husband, excuse me, just for background, was your husband living in state or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, he was living in the state, in a different town. So my son came to live with me, and I was frightened, and I was searching for anything, and I got on the internet, and I was searching around, and I came across NAMI, and we didn't have a website like we have right now, and I don't remember if I called or if I sent an email, but Jim Randall, who you've had on your show, he was my family-to-family teacher. He called me and he said, if you will commit to showing up for all 12 courses of this class, I will get you in. He said, otherwise you're going to go on the waiting list and you're going to have to wait a long time. So I committed, and I went to every single class. And it was a life changer and a lifesaver for me and my son.
Wow. And so did your son actually come to some of the classes with you, or did you go by yourself?
Oh, no, I went by myself.
Okay.
No.
But you were bringing home all the tools that you were learning during the class, and that class has a lot of valuable tools. I want to remind anyone who's dealing with a family member with a mental health issue or brain difference, as we like to call it, family to family should be your first stop. Not your second, should be your first stop. It's also a wealth of resources that they can actually refer you to therapy and things like that will definitely change your life for the better. So when did you, after taking that class, and I know like all of us, you were impressed.
Yes.
Especially if Jim was your teacher. As you said, we had him on the show. Great guy. When did you decide that you were going to take it to the next level and also start to volunteer your time?
Shortly after I finished my family-to-family class, my son had a major psychotic break, which resulted in a incarceration, a stint at a mental hospital, and a step-down facility. And finally, that is what it took to get the proper medication for him. But while I was going through all this, I didn't have any support. I didn't have the support of my friends. I didn't have the support of my family. Everybody kind of backed away, and I was on my own. So when my son got arrested, I called Jim.
Yeah.
And he put me in touch with the criminal justice chair of NAMI, Mark Gale, who you've
course.
also had.
Exactly.
And
great guy again.
they helped me. And the biggest thing I can say is I didn't feel like I was alone. I felt like I had people who actually cared, and they did. And they helped me every step of the way. There was a time my son was in Twin Towers, and he was a nonviolent offender, but they wanted to make an example out of him.
Wow.
And I kept going to see him, kept going to see him, and he wasn't coming to see me for 6 weeks. And I called Mark Gale, and he got in touch with the sheriff, the deputy sheriff who is the supervisor, and he had him go and see my son. And the sheriff called me and told me that my son was okay and helped me get my son into a 5150 within the jail.
The Twin Towers over there.
Yeah.
Wow.
Put me in touch with the clinicians so we could talk all the time, and help me get my son help, which I think saved his life, and I
Absolutely.
maybe mine too.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah. So another thing that you guys might not be aware of is that those that serve on the NAMI San Fernando board, it's a working board, so they also deal with the duties of administrative duties that NAMI needs, as well as most of them are either retired, but they were working at one point other jobs as well. As they made their living. So whenever that's why these people are so special to us, because not only do they understand what you're going through, but they are giving above and beyond what most people are able to do. Again, it's another whole administrative duty dealing with NAMI, as well as their day jobs as well. So it's a lot of work, but they do it because they have a heart for it, and we love you for it as well. Marla, I think you're about to say something.
No, I was just going to say that there's so much more to the story, but I think that the one thing that Robin brings up is when you are at that point, what we all are trying to do is save and solve these problems that are so elusive. The solution is so elusive, and a lot of the times just the understanding of what we're dealing with. So NAMI is an invaluable organization when it comes to mental health, because there's all the resources are there. Right. And so when Robin being our first teacher for Mental Health Monday, I'm sorry, for
family to family.
For being our first teacher from family to family, I remember walking away a lot of times crying, but just because some of it was relief, but just feeling like the information and the understanding and the education alone put us in a better place to deal with what was going to come. And so one of the things that I want to point out is it's a journey of healing. Yes. It's a journey of understanding. And so I wanted her quickly to, I don't think we have time, but just to touch on the secular events that all of us deal with our children who are suffering from brain differences. It's not just one time for a lot of people. There's repeated, sometimes hospitalizations. There's repeated, sometimes jail visits. I know that for DJ, he had 4 court cases just for walking around nude at 4 different courts. 4 different hearings. So he'd been arrested multiple times.
And half of those we had to go see him there because he also was incarcerated at the time. Right. And we'll let Robin try to put a pin in that and answer that question when we come right back. Great discussion. Stay tuned.
Bad.
What are you doing?
Worthless.
Don't trust them. They'll hurt you. You're worthless.
It's pointless.
When the pain of schizophrenia meets hope, everything can change. Help someone who is struggling by supporting the National Alliance on Mental Illness and be a part of the NAMI effect. Hope starts with you.
It's raw, real, and unfiltered.
All right. Wow. We're out of time already.
I needed to be sure with that I just said thank you, and thank you for being so instrumental in our journey of understanding and sharing. B, through this journey, you and I have become friends, and I'm very appreciative of that.
Me too.
And C, just for us, and again, you may see these people more than one time, our guests, because the stories are so deep. There's so much to say. There's so much to share, and I'm inviting you. This is an altar call. I'm literally, if this were the Church of Mental Illness, I'm asking you to come to the altar right now, which is literally to find the NAMI chapter nearest you. Donate to NAMI San Fernando Valley. Definitely. There's lovingbeyondreason.org. Our organization is new, but on the rise, and we're all connected in the same cause. This is Robin Steiner, who is not just like you hear. She's taken on more than family to family, because our drive to help heal something that is has such a deep stigma and such a a dismissal and it's degrading. We degrade those who are different than us, and these are our sons, these are our daughters, these are our family members who are just wanting to be loved and accepted, and you cannot do that in just form without an education or an understanding of what serves them best.
Well, we want to thank our guest, Robin Steiner. And again, Mental Health Mondays is brought to you by NAMI San Fernando Valley and Loving Beyond Reason. We're Marla and Dave, and we want you to remember that your overall health includes your mental health. We'll see you next week.
I'll be back.